We're good to go. Okay, it is 7:01 p.m. on September 12th. Kay, would you please take roll?
Nicholas DeFrank,
Here.
Jeff Davlin is absent. Nick Mission,
Here.
Kim McGee,
Present.
Jarrett Mork,
Here.
Cindy Saplesio,
Here.
Jesse Garcia,
Here.
Candace Hart is absent, and Ann Krimmer.
Thank you, Kay. First item on the docket tonight, folks, is the appointment of a new chair and vice chair. I'm gonna pass that buck to you, Jared, to walk us through that process.
Yeah, so I kind of included a little, all these people online, sorry about that. Yeah, so we can do this. Microphone work? I think it's working now. So I included a little bit of an overview in the memo. But essentially, since Jay has stepped down, we need to appoint a new chairperson for the P&Z. Typically, it's any member can nominate any other member to serve as vice chair. We look for a second for that nomination or motion, and then the nominee can accept or reject the nomination if they want to or don't want to serve. And then there could be a vote. We're always welcome to nominate multiple people if there's multiple people interested in the position. But typically we would vote the chair. Currently, Nicholas is our vice chair, and we could vote to either reappoint him as the vice chair or someone else as a vice chair in that position. So that's kind of what's before you guys tonight. I don't know if you have any questions. Otherwise, let the bloodbath, nominations begin.
Yeah.
What say you, Commission?
I'd like to nominate Nicholas as the chair.
Bold move. Bold move.
But a logical move.
You can accept or reject.
I will accept.
Okay, I second.
I will throw my hat in the ring.
Okay,
for
I'll
it.
second it. Do we vote now? That was easy.
Sure, can really be that simple.
Sorry.
Oh, who leads the vote? How do we vote?
You would, as the still presiding officer, you'd call a vote.
Okay.
It could just be a yay or nay. You could do a roll call if you think it's going to be contentious.
I'm gonna do I'm gonna call a vote for Nicholas DeFrank as chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Sure.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Right on. Thank you all. Appreciate it, Kim. Appreciate it. Look forward to it. And in that move, I'm just gonna follow it up with a nomination for one Jarrett Mork for vice chair.
will second.
With that, I'll call.
Nobody else? Okay, I'll accept.
Are you sure?
So I'm gonna call a vote for Jarrett Mork for vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yay or nay?
Yeah.
The ayes have it. All right.
Voting.
I saw a head nod on each one.
Okay.
All right. Well, exciting time, folks. It all of a sudden feels like I want Jay and his training wheels back. But here we go for a new era. I'm sure there's going to be a moment where I'm going to be looking over at you two a lot for some guidance. But as always, I think the thing that makes this easy is having all of you here. You too, Nick, even in Zoom land, appreciating this crew and the new members as well. But I think we've had a solid commission for a while here. So I think, just the 2 cents, I think that I actually, when I met with the BOT for Ann's selection the other night, the thing that I think makes this crew great is we don't always agree, but we are always pretty damn thoughtful. And everyone, I think, gets here that we are not here on personal missions, but we are here to support this community and do our best to be outside of ourselves, to leave our own stuff at the door, and to really remember that we have a code, a UDC, and we have a comp plan that are our guiding documents that are really what helps us make decisions in a fair and rational manner. So excited to move ahead with that in mind. And so with that next order of business, so we can keep this thing moving, consent agenda. Comments on the August 22nd meeting minutes?
I have no comments. Once again, thanks, Kay.
Thank you, Kay, for that. Yep. In light of no comments, I will.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. Minutes been approved for August 22nd, 24. Public comment for persons not on the agenda. Packed house again tonight. Anybody else on Zoom? Just us. All right. Action items. Thanks for this this check-in opportunity, Jared. That's not opening up. There we go. Did everybody have a chance to check this this out? Anybody want to start us off? So basically, what we have here, 4 questions, looking at kind of moving forward. This is an opportunity. You know, you've kind of been in motion for a while. Now things are this opportunity to change and kind of look at where we're at. I think there's some opportunity here for us to look inward, both kind of how we function, kind of what we've learned about the process that's been going on. Some of us for months, some of us for years. And then there's also an opportunity for us to kind of talk to Jared, Ellie, and Kay about, you know, ways that either we can ask maybe how we can help them more, and kind of provide some better support for staff, or if there's things that from them that would be more helpful to us. Is there who would like to start? I would love like each person just, you know, to kind of go around the room as always and just yeah, Jared, thanks.
I think before we discuss between ourselves, Jared, if we're looking for some of these things, like if we're, I don't know, if we're wanting to either extend our grasp or to kind of create a little bit more rules within ourselves, is that something that we are capable of like governing ourselves, or is that something that the BOT has to approve? Or
No, I would say it's probably within your guys' authority to kind of set your own rules for yourselves, kind of operating rules.
Okay.
So long as they don't violate town code, charter, Robert's Rules of Order, stuff like that. But you know, I kind of to Nick's point, I think it's always good, you know, especially with a leadership change on a board or commission, a new chair, it's always a good opportunity to check in, you know, and say, hey, these were some things that we felt were successful and not successful. And, you know, what can we do to continue to utilize everyone's time to the fullest here?
And I don't think this needs to be formal right now, correct, Jared?
This is just an informal conversation for sure.
So I think, you know, when throw something out there, I don't, you know, kind of test the waters a little bit with other commission members, and just, I think it's an opportunity to either ask questions if that's what comes up, if they try to identify something, or if you do have an opinion, we'd love to hear it. No wrong ideas, safety.
Except for Jared's.
Yeah, Jared.
gotta be careful with what comes out of this. I have some notes, I guess, prepared. They're pretty typical from what I was onboarded with, but I'm not sure if they were really continued throughout, but just some thoughts here is prompt number 1 is before and during the meetings. Before, I'm saying that we need to actually like visit the site, review the packet, get some questions, try to figure out what's going on with the project. Why is this a particular project that's being brought to P&Z, and try to visit the site and try to understand it a little bit better. If we're just using, you know, Google Maps or Bing or whatever you want to use, it doesn't really give you the feel for the surroundings very well. So I think it's really important that at least at some point before the week, I know Kay sends out packets, you know, well in advance. Tuesdays probably are like the latest or usually when I start looking at it. I think that's a really good opportunity to give yourself some more knowledge and context and I don't know, maybe there's a neighbor out there or something, I don't know, figure it out. But I think that's it's really crucial and that should help you prepare questions, might help you answer questions for both staff and the applicant. So I think those are really important things to do. And again, I don't know if that was really maintained at the BOT meeting on Tuesday. I didn't really hear any like role explanation, and I don't know how that process is still being handled. So I think that's something that Kim and I had to go through, and I think it's really just crystal clear. I think it helps you understand it better.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know that it isn't always easy. My slacker move is en route to commission meetings. You know, if all else fails and you need to just do a quick drive by, get out of the car, have a look around. But, you know, especially when we're talking about, I think, applications that are leaning more into that comp plan side, if you're talking about kind of character, like the community surroundings, the context, it becomes really, really important. And like Jared said, you know, Google Earth isn't always enough. You know, that little street view thing. You know, understanding simple things like how does the public realm interface with the private realm? How does the building interface with the street and the pedestrian way around it can become really important. And when we get into residences, understanding those side yard setbacks, seeing that visually, you know, it's really, really good point. And I know, I mean, you all do so much, we all do so much already. So I think it is what helps us, you know, really get into that, you know, gold star range when we take that step to really understand that piece. Good point.
And to further yours, I think when I was introduced onto this committee, it was, you know, prior to the meeting or like the day of the meeting, at least go past, ride your bike past it or something,
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm not saying that you have to do it so well in advance, but to me, Tuesdays are just my days to do things, and it usually helps me out quite a bit. So.
Right on.
It's a really good point, you know, because we've been entrusted by the town to take on this burden of being responsible and being informed when we get to the meetings. And kudos to you guys, because you do such a great job of filling in some of the gaps. Like, as long as we know the space and we've studied the packet, but then you give a lot of color and explanation to other things that we might need to know or that can inform some of our questions that we're going to ask.
Yeah.
So,
And I think to that same point, looking at the comp plan, if it's where it falls in the comp plan, because for me, the comp plan is really helpful to see what's going to happen to that area or the space around it in the future, or at least as far as we're planning. So I think that's really important.
You know, and you know, that's a good call, Cindy. You know, carrying around a hard copy of a UDC is not exactly user friendly. But our comp plan, you know, dovetailing that, putting notes in a PDF, whatever it is, even if you like, you don't totally get it, but you know there's a relationship, it gets us to this room and it gets us to these brains over here who can kind of help guide us through if there are questions, right? So I think just getting to that point of like, you know, seeing a relationship, seeing some sort of connection between the application and the areas that we need to be connecting to is just super valuable. So, you know, kind of in this motion now of talking about, or in this mode of talking about preparation, I think even to reel it back a second and just to make sure that we're all reading the packet, or at least like knowing the application when it's coming out. I know sometimes we have a lot going on outside. I mean, we all have a lot going outside of this. We all have busy lives, no doubt. But to be here, to be on this group is to say that, you know, you are all willing to read that packet and to come in with at least a semblance of an understanding, and if not a full understanding, questions to help you all make a decision. I think at the end of the day, we make legally binding decisions. We are, you know, aside from the BOT, we are the only commission in this town whose decisions are, you know, who carry a legal weight to them. So, you know, I've been in the seat, and I know Nick has too, long enough where we've seen legal action come against the town for decisions that have been made. I'm not sure, Jared, have you been through any yet?
If not,
It's
kept us out of lawsuits.
Stay on the
because you're
roll.
really good.
Forward to that.
Stay there.
So anyways, just like, yeah, thanks for kicking us off, Jared, and like just that preparation thing. This is a great opportunity, and I think we all know there's a lot going on in town right now. You know, since the comp plan, since when everybody was sick for a minute or two, things have just, you know, really kind of kept moving. And so taking that all in and knowing that town's not getting smaller, it's not moving any slower anytime soon, I'm pretty sure. So, and I'm pretty sure construction projects are not getting any fatter margins on them. So people are gonna be looking at us, you know, as part of this application process to really see them through in a fair way. Who else has something?
I think this isn't particularly a comment, good or bad, but it was either Michael or the attorney or somebody when we were going through our training that really emphasized, don't forget to come in as a blank slate. And that was probably the biggest thing I learned in the beginning, because I'd read through the packet and I think, oh, I know what I think about this. And
Yeah.
what I had to do was just erase, come in here as a clean slate, because there have been many times when someone from the group has presented a comment or the applicant, and I've gone, oh, I had that all wrong. I really, my stance has changed. So I think just staying flexible has been a really good thing to do. And like I said, that's not really a comment regarding what we're doing, but it's a good thing to remember.
I think it's a great reminder. And it goes back to that, you know, that the onset of this is, you know, leaving all of our stuff at the door for this process and really coming in fresh as, you know, we are here. I mean, sorry to be cheesy, but we are public servants in this action. We are volunteering to be servants. We're not volunteering to soapbox or bring our stuff. And I know personally, I'll just quickly share, I was guilty of that. I don't know if I was with what I'll honestly say, an application last year or two that I couldn't get out of my own way. In retrospect, I felt pretty bad about it, and knew that it really kind of made things muckier. I mean, I believed in something that I thought was really kind of appropriate, but like Kim said, I kind of brought a little bit something even before here, in common sense eluded me in that. And so I think it's, you know, we're all, you know, we can all be guilty of it. And so, like, you know, if you catch yourself, or if we can help you in that process, please know that nothing's personal in those moments, but we'll try to talk things down and talk things through. You know, so that's a great comment. Great idea, Kim.
Well, we have really good guidelines. I mean, there are things to look at. Does the town want this? Does the town not want this? You know, the comp plan, the UDC.
Mm-hmm.
You guys do such a good job, though, of collecting all that stuff and putting it right where we can get to it. And it almost feels like there's too much burden on staff. Is there something that we should be doing to help you guys more?
You know, I think it's kind of what you guys have all been saying, you know, it's being prepared at the meetings, being ready to discuss. That helps us with presentations where we don't feel like we have to walk you guys through the entire packet of information. We can just highlight some of the high level salient points. Or kind of the bigger topics that need to be kind of discussed or thought or discussed or decisions made on. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, you know. Consistency is something that's always helpful, and I've seen it with some of the turnover. I see a lot of the same faces at the same meetings, and I think that really helps with decision expectation from applicants, and then us kind of relaying that to them, saying, oh, you know, they're generally pretty, the P&Z is generally pretty strict on this topic, so you might want to think about that a little bit more, or you might want to, you know, provide some more detail or more exhibits about this because you're going to be asked a lot of questions about this topic. And it's helpful when we have kind of the same makeup of the board, where that kind of gets reinforced versus, you know, completely different decision-making groups each time. Or, you know, I know, and I know it's challenging. You guys are all volunteers, so I don't want to say you have to be here, but I think we saw it with the Little Blue application to a degree, right? That took a number of meetings, and at each meeting we had kind of a different group of people. And I know the applicant kind of shared with us afterwards, they're like, it felt like it was a brand new review each time we came in. And so I think, you know, keeping that in mind, with your availability, even if you can't make a meeting, but you do have thoughts to share, you're always welcome to send them to the chair, send them to staff. You know, it can be a way of providing that feedback, that input, and hopefully trying to keep some of that dialogue that was happening at a previous meeting moving forward, or saying that was settled or whatever that might be. So hopefully that's a little, you know, food for thought.
That's a fair point. I put that also in here too, because it was just before and during for meetings and stuff. I figured after, some of these packets are, you know, 400 pages long, right? Like if you're gonna be here for that one and not for the other, and like there's a continuance or something like that, I feel like if you're at that meeting, it should be in your best ability to either attend, or like what you're saying, you know, if you had comments and if you had reservations and you were part of that continuance, I feel like your voice still needs to be a part of that follow-up meeting, right? Like I was definitely guilty of that example specifically.
Yeah.
But it's something that I make very clear to like my girlfriend when we have like the kids for a Thursday, right? I'm like, I have to be there. Like that's something that like really means a lot to me. So I need to continue to be a part of this specific one, right? So to me, that should be going without saying. It's really difficult to manage that. Obviously, everybody has a lot of things going on, but I think the email or the comments or something like that is a great idea for how to do that if you cannot physically attend.
Yeah.
Right.
And also kind of remember some of the comments that your fellow commissioners made, right? Just because Jarrett had a life situation and couldn't attend that meeting doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's, oh, we don't care what Jarrett said at the last meeting. You know, maybe it's you guys also pick up the slack and say, hey, this was a big topic that we discussed last time. What do we all think about that? You know, Jarrett's comments were X, Y, Z, and that's a way of helping, you know, move that forward without, I guess, without trying to re-deliberate every last topic. You know, it helps make sure things don't just kind of fall off the cliff.
I mean, maybe to wrap this section up with on a positive note, attendance has been actually really great recently. We've gone through some patches. I'll leave that there. So, you know, if it has like, you know, Nick at times has to do Zoom. I know Kim does. And, you know, if that has to happen, then make that happen. You know, I think we don't prefer to have everybody in here. I think it's very human and nice, but I know, you know, it has to happen and whatever it takes. So thank you all for this, for being here in any capacity. Super, super helpful. And to just the previous point, you know, us showing up like this together, it's solidarity. I think it's professional for our town, professional for this commission. I think it gives a little bit more credence to our process when we're all here, in one way or the other. Anything else on expectations or kind of the what I'll maybe call the logistics of what we do? Any questions, new folks? Nick, you're really quiet over there. I don't want to forget about you. Any thoughts or anything you'd like to kind of weigh in on?
Not really. I think that we as a commission have done a terrific job up until now. Very diligent, very thoughtful, a lot of, you know, constructive conversation. constructive conflict at times, which is a good thing.
Yep.
I suppose I would just remind the team of what something Janet Buck was really, really adamant about, which is ex parte communication. You know, as a quasi judicial committee, we're really not supposed to be talking to anybody about much of anything, related or otherwise. I don't know how you do that in a small town. And it never really happened to me, but I've heard of people getting cornered in the supermarket, you know, and it probably happened to Janet, but she was a real stickler about that. And
That's happened to me too.
You know, I actually, you know, my move on that one, Nick, is I have to the awkward smile and nod. You know, it almost in a funny way. It's like it's really easy to like kind of play around with like the awkward, like, you know. And then people get it in a second or two. But
and then don't be afraid to recuse yourself. There's nothing, there's no shame in it. It's the right thing to do. It's a noble thing to do. Recuse yourself from a decision-making procedure if that does happen, or if there's someone in your office who's proposing, you know, it's just the right thing to do.
Hey, Nick, will you walk us through what else, like other areas of recusal, like what some other as an architect, you know, so if you're on a project, have prior knowledge of a project, you were just saying a few, I thought you'd
I
walk
think
us
that,
through.
you know, in lieu of just straight up recusing yourself, at least disclosing your relationship to that person is very important. And then let the committee decide whether you should recuse yourself, move forward with recusing yourself, or, you know, let the committee ask the question, you know, do you feel you can make an impartial, you know, decision on this or vote on this? You know, can you be impartial? Do you really think you can be impartial? You know, that type of conversation, I think, happens in lieu of just straight up recusal. Sometimes we've got, you know, a limited number of committee members. That's you know, an appropriate conversation to be had.
Yeah. And I do like that we've had a tradition of kind of giving the person the benefit of the doubt. You know, if let's say it's a project that you're not actually on, but someone in your office is, you can say, hey, you know, it's happening in my office right now. I'm aware of it, but I don't have any kind of, I'm aware of the project, but I don't have any knowledge with, you know, in the project. Or yes, this person's my neighbor, but or lives on my block. Like if they were your neighbor, you would probably have to recuse pretty clearly. But they live on my block and I have no connection to them. I feel that I could, you know, I think self-identifying has been a pretty good tradition here. But I think it is important to expect this commission to kind of look back at you and perhaps challenge in some situations, you know, that.
Also, I think that you probably could still participate as either, you know, if you're a neighbor, for example, and you feel that you're in strong support of the project, whatever it may be, you could act as a citizen.
I don't think so on that one.
No, you can't write a letter or anything. I don't know. You can't even
No.
write. Okay, so you can't step down and act as a, you know, some other. Okay, I don't know.
No.
You can be
Yeah.
part of the conversation, but you can't vote, you can't have an opinion.
So
Once you recuse yourself, you must actually leave the room.
Yeah.
These are-
Is the way we
okay.
do it.
So the only time you can act as a citizen is if it's a project directly affecting your own property or your own business. Other than that, we try to take a very conservative approach and just ask you to leave the room, not participate. And part of the reason why we have 7 regular members and 2 alternates is so that we have that redundancy, so we don't have to put anybody in that awkward position of you have to vote on something and put ourselves in legal hot water. So
And to further that, I've been in both situations where I've had to recuse myself and to disclose, association to a project or something like that. If you see it come forward, which is also, again, it's a good reason to look at the packet prior, is reach out to, Jared or Kay or Ellie and to say, hey, I have involvement. I have either active involvement or I have, that's from my office or, XYZ, you gotta come to them. So that way, if you do have to recuse yourself, we do have a proper quorum to make that decision. Otherwise, it's, a waste of everybody's time.
And not everyone's an industry professional, but if you do have a project, you cannot present your project to this commission. Just to know, you need to have somebody else on the team who is in the capacity to do that. You are allowed to serve on this commission because we are a small town. We allow that kind of overlap, but you can't sit in those chairs essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a lot of that just ability to potentially influence decision makings.
Yeah.
And so we ask that you have someone else, and if there is no one else, we can discuss that. So don't be afraid to ask, but generally speaking, there's other people who can help present a project or move something forward.
Right. I have done presentations for projects my firm has done here, but only in they've been town projects, more in kind of an update capacity, not asking any kind of asking for opinions, but it wouldn't be anything that would be binding or
A generally applicable
yeah.
code or master plan or something like that on behalf of the town versus a site-specific development application.
Yeah.
And then whenever I get that sort of response, Nick's talking about, if somebody comes and approaches you to talk to you about it, I usually just tell them, come to the meeting.
Yeah. And
I'm not gonna hear it. I'm not gonna talk to you about it. Come and say it at the meeting.
it's always easy to deflect and just say, come to the meeting, or here's Jared's contact, here's Ellie's contact, go talk to them.
Yeah.
Tell them what you're gonna tell me because they can actually do something about it right now. I know one thing our town attorney likes to share is, another tactic can be, if you talk to me about this, I can no longer participate. So your advocating to me is counteracting your best interests, right? And so that's something that he likes to share with new P&Z members. So always good to remind. All this stuff you'll get on the 25th when we do our new commissioner training.
Anything else in this logistics zone? Questions around rules or process? These questions are great, by the way, Jared. So let's go into the chair hot seat for a second. How can I help you? No. What, and this is not a chance to attack Jay in any way, but in those who've been here for more than just Jay. But I think, none of us are perfect. Jay, I will clearly be leading differently than Jay. I am not Jay. I think it's probably fair to just be real about that. What did we learn during his process? I think I was always watching him. I was obviously his left-hand man. You were right-hand man. What could we, what can I help, use this moment to kind of do better than or learn from, or what were some standout things you thought that he did really, really well?
One of the things that I loved about Jay was that I could be on Zoom, I could be wherever, and he always made the time to call on me, check in and say, hey, what do you have to say about this? And I felt like he was really, really well-spoken and well-versed in speaking to anyone that came into the room, whether it was someone sitting at this table, someone at the podium. I think he was very respectful and always thanked the people for their time. And, I think people are sometimes really nervous about coming to see us and talk to us, and, they're being recorded and we're the audience, and so I think he really did a nice job of acknowledging people, and you're the same way, so I'm not worried about that at all. But
I'm definitely not as nice as Jay, but I think that but he did he allowed people to feel like seen and heard, I think, in a very professional way. So yeah, great point. What else? What else? I mean,
Jay also was good at, he was really good at facilitating the discussion, like he'd have an opinion and then he'd just say, what do you think? What do
mhm,
you think? What do you think? So he never just gave us his idea or his thought. And sometimes he asked us before he even threw out what he was thinking about a project or a specific part of it. And I think he was good at that, just like letting other people all give input before he even gave his.
Yeah.
I think that was helpful to get everybody involved.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how we've managed it. And even when we had Michael, like somehow all of these thoughts and views and everything come into this room and we somehow figure out a way to navigate solutions
Mhm,
and
Yeah.
being able to vote. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll keep going in that direction. But sometimes we get to the beginning of the conversation, I'm thinking, whoa,
Right.
I don't know how we're gonna get to the end of this, but we do.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. And maybe one, I don't know if this is really on Jay or not, but something that I would note for us is we can, this commission has done some wandering over the years. We've had some late nights. And not all of those are our fault by any means, but some of them are definitely self-imposed. And I think there's an opportunity to maybe facilitate ourselves. I'll try to do a good job of that, in this role, but I invite all of you as well to kind of step in and, kind of, be organized in your thoughts and your comments as best you can, or your questions as they come up. I think it goes a few ways. Number one, it goes to, I think, the applicant. That is where we start, right? That is the respect that we're trying to show to this applicant who is in here, trying to do this thing and get the permissions they need. I think next, we have staff who is working long hours, and you get some pretty crazy overtime for all this, right? I was looking at Ken.
Yeah.
But out of respect for the true public servants here, I think, and then to ourselves and each other, we have some of us have people to go home to, we have cats, we have dogs, we have, a breath after a long day, keeping ourselves organized, keeping ourselves on task, sorry, is going to be really, really helpful, I think, in helping us find a little bit more efficiency, perhaps. Is that is that land okay for folks?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was gonna be my comment.
Right on, Nick. I mean, and sometimes we get into really, like, we're all a little bit dorky to be here, right? Like, and that's okay. And then sometimes we get into like a super geeky thing and we're all like, glossing over like, like we got to reel ourselves in. I'll try to reel us in, and other people can feel free to reel us in as well. But sometimes it can get a little too fun for our own good.
And for the applicants, I think.
Yeah.
I think that someone's applying, we need to show them some, I mean, I've seen them sometimes, that we've seen angry people, we've seen people that were upset. And I think we really need to keep that in mind. And I've seen them rolling their eyes when we start some conversation about the trash can or something. They're like, so I just think we need to make sure that we stay focused.
Yeah.
For their sake too.
Yeah, time moderation, conversation moderation, just ensuring that, everybody's saying something, but not too much.
One of the things that, and to the point of Jay, like you said, Cindy, Nick, I just saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to maybe, what falls right in line with that is making sure that we're not acting beyond our authority.
Yeah.
It's And then really understanding what our authority is and checking in with staff to making sure that we understand what we're tasked to do at any given moment. And maybe staff could give us a little, hip check when we're stepping outside of our authority. Really, that's something that legally we don't want to do. That was all.
Anything else on this one? I might end it with a comment, then kind of in a transition comment. It's okay for us if as long as we're standing within our boundaries, Nick was just talking about, as long as we're referencing code, we are not trying to make friends with the applicant. I want to be really clear about that. We need to be respectful, we need to be honorable, we need to be professional. But I think it's very important to know that this interaction is not it's not a social interaction. It's a business professional interaction. I just want to remind everyone that yes, rolling their eyes because we're wandering off into some crazy conversation is one thing, but them applicant getting upset over how we understand or interpreting something, that is not on us. And I will always have your back. And I look to each other to have, if someone's not explaining it, let's help them, or I'm sorry, understanding it. Let's help our fellow commissioners get there if there's a sort of kind of clear misunderstanding of something. But otherwise, if not every application is going to go super smooth. They just don't. And so
One of the, when we had the open house over at the launch pad for the comp plan, one of the former mayors of Aspen was chatting with me, and, I was asking him what he thought, and he said, well, I can't really give an opinion because I don't live here. And then he said, well, I used to be the mayor up there. And I said, well, what do you have to share with me? What's your advice? And he said, the one thing you guys need to remember is it's okay to say no. If you feel that it doesn't fit with what the town's trying to do, say no, it's okay. And he said, you're not here to be popular. You're not here to be friends. It's okay to say no.
it's great.
And I thought that was really valuable advice, and I appreciated that he shared it.
Yeah. One of the applications that I think this commission did really amazing on, and ironically, the BOT overturned us on it, but we said no to a pot shop over on West Main. And we spent time, everybody was very prepared for that. We had very solid grounds. And I know it was tough for Jay. He wasn't the best at saying no. He's such a nice individual. I think he wanted to find a way through. And in the end, even he was like, this is not appropriate, not good. And I think at the end of that, it was interesting. It was a very kind of positive vibe, hey, we can say no. And we learned how to do that as a commission that night. It was really great. A great example of that.
Yeah, that was pretty much what we were all just talking about. We had a very upset applicant.
Oh man.
Yelling on Zoom.
Yeah.
A very upset neighbor. And then we kept trying to find how could we make this work, or try to give them ideas, and it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
Right. So what I've heard is, really kind of including everybody, continuing that trend of making sure that everybody has a voice, and really kind of, and to that point, if I see you, not talking, I'm gonna try to pull you in. That's weird. It's a warning, every one of you is here and has something special to share. So, please expect, to be pulled into this. I think it's very important for us to all do that. And if somehow you've been skipped in the hustle and bustle, please put up your hand just like Nick did on Zoom or in person, so we can make sure to get everyone's opinions. We've talked about being very respectful to our applicants and kind of hearing them, and again, still not a social scenario, but helping them feel that they are welcome here, and that we do want them to come in and bring applications to support what they want to do. We all want the best for this town, and it takes folks, private enterprise takes commercial interests and other interests to do that. So we talked about that. Facilitation, keeping things rolling. kind of being on target with how we move and are efficient in our conversations. And then our, also just talking about our ability to say no. Anything else on this one? I know we kind of wandered from the chair discussion a little bit, but I feel like it's kind of wrapped in there.
Oh, yeah, but no, feel free to, yeah.
I wasn't sure. I just want to say that I support everything you guys put forward, and I think it's great. I think over the years, the board has come back around, because I think for a while it was a little sketchy as a resident.
The board,
And the last,
our commission?
not current members. I would say more like 8 years ago, it was just kind of weird at times. And you guys have really brought it around, and I'm grateful for that and really excited to join you. I think all the comments on how the board should work together is great, and I support it fully, and I'm excited to be part of it.
The only other thing I would add is, extending that courtesy as well to members of the public who come
Oh, yeah,
and want to
thank you.
speak too. So,
Great.
again, it's not trying to accommodate every comment, concern, criticism that a member of the public has, but respectfully listening to their thoughts, comments. They took time. Again, not everyone's comfortable with speaking. So even getting up here and speaking before this group at a mic, at a dais can be very, nerve-wracking for some people. So I think making it that space where they can feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. And then, I think it's helpful if you are sharing your opinions and the P&Z is kind of going against it, to kind of provide some of that rationale as to why, and I think you guys did a really good job with the most recent application, where there was a lot of comments about, impacts on Highway 133. And you guys had a really good conversation about why you didn't feel it was appropriate to hit that development with some of the bigger 133 issues. And I think whether they agreed with your comments or not, they at least understood the why behind it. So, just want to encourage that as well. And not saying you haven't done it, just as a reminder.
It's a good example. I mean, there was some disagreements there, and it didn't get out of control in any way. People definitely left not with smiles on their face. But it was, I think it was well managed and very clear, our positions and also those of the applicant.
On that topic, jumping just one sentence ahead,
Mhm.
where you ask us, besides ongoing land use applications, are there other topics P&Z desires to consider? I am interested in understanding, so many people, groups and everything else have brought to us their concerns regarding 133.
I know.
And we wholeheartedly embrace all of these concerns. I mean, we have the same concerns. What's our purview? I mean, is there a conversation that we can have that's helpful with CDOT, or is there anything that involves us that we can do
I'm
or
gonna
that
add
we
on
should
to-
discuss regarding 133?
Well, and will we revisit that in the comp plan, which it was definitely omitted. I think that was one of those threshold items that, sorry to jump in on that, but I mean, I know not everyone has been here as long as I have, but it's been something that I've been very passionate about. Obviously, it's my line of work, that kind of stuff. So it's, so yes, there have been so many voices about it. And when we do get, I think a lot of applications, especially, knowing that there's limited land space left, it will potentially come down more. So sorry to jump on your question, Kim.
No, that's what I wanted. I just am curious, like, do we have further conversations about that? Is that our purview? Do we just wait until the next project comes up that's involved with 133? I'm just, it's interesting.
Yeah, I guess just digging into that slightly, is your question like, what ability does this group have to influence decision-making on Highway 133? Or is it to better understand how decisions on who gets what type of access on 133? I guess I'm just
It's
trying
more
to.
the first,
Okay.
it's like, are we responsible? I mean, as citizens, we want to see 133 function as well as possible. What's, as a commission, is there something, I mean, do we do something? Can we have conversations about this? Is there a way to influence this, or is that out of our hands?
I have maybe an intermediary.
Yeah.
How can we help the public provide guidance to enable us to clearly understand what our larger resident base is looking for in 133? Because right now we have, it's called New Urban, which makes no sense. We hear everything, we know we have some, the map Carbondale happening, that it's gonna provide us with some great information, on that. But we also have age-friendly Carbondale, we clearly know about their concerns out there. It seems like we don't have a clear understanding of how to respond to what the 133 right now. There's a lot of different kind of maybe competing understandings of, maybe at the first level, is it, what is the mix, or how are we trying to understand it as a vehicle centric versus pedestrian safety? What is the scale? What is the speed of it? How do buildings, i.e. the private realm, interface with the public realm or the right of way? I don't know if it's, I mean, yes, you can kind of make kind of a judgment between the comp plan and the UDC, but I don't know if it's exactly stitched up tight at this point.
Yeah, it's
I was gonna say, is it ever?
it's challenging. I think kind of starting at like the macro scale, I think this body's role with 133 is kind of setting forth guiding documents like the comp plan or other master plan type elements that guide development and use of land in and along the Highway 133 corridor. That's, to your point, kind of achieved with the comprehensive plan, but maybe didn't take as deep of a dive. In some communities, they say, hey, we've got this larger comp plan, but we also have these focus areas that we really want. So we're going to do these sub-area master plans that really focus on this very defined corridor and get maybe a little more into the nitty-gritty details than a comprehensive plan might get into. And it might talk more about, built form or pedestrian access or things along those lines. One kind of element of a sub-area plan like that is what the town's currently doing with Map Carbondale. Once that's adopted, that is a guiding document that the town has set forth that said, here's our vision for improving pedestrian safety, vehicular access, vehicular mobility, non-motorized mobility kind of throughout town. And so as developments come forth to the town, or rezonings or whatever land use actions come forth to the town that are on parcels that are impacted or have impact on some of those recommendations, that'll be brought forth. And so, in the future, if a redevelopment site on 133 comes in and we have this plan adopted, one of the things that you guys are going to get in your packet is also the comp plan says this, but Map Carbondale says this. Map Carbondale says there should be a pedestrian crossing at this intersection. We think this development should build that, help build it, help fund it, or no part at all in it, and so I think that's kind of one tool to kind of help move that forward on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do we know when we're gonna get that?
So there will be a larger commission open house, if you will, at the, I believe it's the November Bike Ped Trail Commission meeting. So we're gonna send out invites. It was supposed to be October, got pushed back a month. But we're gonna invite all boards and commissions to come, hear a presentation from our consultants, FHU, hear about the recommendations of the plan, provide any comments, thoughts, opinions on that. They'll do another final draft, and then that will go up to the Board of Trustees for adoption. So, you know, that's kind of the next step there. We're hoping to have it adopted by the end of the year, and move that forward. So I think there's that. You know, I think some of the challenge with 133 is that it's a CDOT roadway.
Right.
And so we as a community still have limited say. Limited, not no say, right? Like in a redevelopment application such as, say, A and B Bank, that's already been approved and no longer in review. The access control plan said you should do X, and they did X, and they provided that. And CDOT said, yep, we'll give you a permit for this. That's all fine, helpful, good, but that doesn't mean that it also meets all of our local regulations as well. And so just because CDOT says that doesn't mean that we don't have something to say about it. We could say, well, that's nice that you're doing this acceleration lane, but we're also concerned about the pedestrian access, you know, across that acceleration lane. And that was one of the topics that came up, is how do we narrow that width down so it's shorter for a pedestrian to cross there, safer for that pedestrian. And so that was some comments that were made at this group that got incorporated into that. And so I think there's things like that. If you said, we think there should be a new access point on Highway 133, that might be an uphill battle. But yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of guidance. So I don't want to say there's no ability to influence. There is plenty of ability to influence.
That's really helpful though, because I got to help a little bit with a couple of those sessions where we sat in on Map Carbondale.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that we have some sort of guiding document or something where what's the voice of the people?
Yeah.
Instead of having to sit around and wait for the next person to appear and jump up and down. So that's good.
I have a question on 133. Do you know, Jared, if CDOT has provided anything for their plans for 133? Because I know they've always talked about limited access and medians and more roundabouts, but I don't know when the last time they've actually made their plan known to Carbondale.
Yeah,
And maybe
so-
it's there and I just don't know, because
So it's that 2013 access control plan was
Okay.
really the last time that was
So that's
updated.
old.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think within the framework of CDOT roads,
It's actually not.
not terribly old. Although there's been a lot of change in how we feel as a community, there's been a lot of change on 133. CDOT looks at that and says, there really hasn't been all that much change, because they're just looking at things in a much larger vehicle mile travel and vehicle trip per day scope. So, you know, I would say that's the last one. There's been work on implementation projects, but yeah, CDOT plans tend to be relatively slow to
Did you
update.
feel that that one reflects the town goals? Or do you think we're really far apart?
No, I think it does. I think
Okay.
a lot of what Map Carbondale is talking about, the Highway 133 access control plan, helps achieve that. I think the one challenge is when we have an access control plan and then CDOT's approving permits that are contrary to that access control plan.
Yeah.
That's a little difficult. But you know, the long-term goal is to have more limited write-in, write-out only access points, have some sort of divider median down the middle of Highway 133 and have more full turning movement intersections, whether that's roundabouts or traffic lights or things along those lines, to allow more cars to make the quote unquote boomerang turn where they're going right, going around a roundabout and coming back left instead of making that left-hand turn. I think that the challenge is the cost. It's a relatively safe road in the grand scheme of CDOT roads. And so there isn't a lot of impetus to put money to something where they're like, well, we don't have a lot of crashes there. We haven't had any deaths, things like that, that move the needle at their level.
Well, I'm gonna reel us in a little bit off of the actual road, which is kind of outside of our purview, and maybe into the public-private interface, right? Like that right-of-way extent.
Mhm.
I think maybe if I'm seeing where you were going, Kim, and I know where I was going with it is, the comp plan's a little outdated for that area.
Mhm.
We will have guidance on mobility, so we'll know how to respond to applications as far as how vehicles and pedestrians are concerned. I don't know if we have up-to-date guidance on the character, how buildings interface the right of way. I think we got into it a little bit with the Jack and Riley's last two buildings. How, kind of how they like were off the sidewalk, but not, it was like just an interesting kind of like way that engaged the public realm. And I think, and that's why I go back to like this new urban designation that we have out there. I don't know, it's just kind of a wandering one, and I want to be respectful of our time as well right now. But, and I know it's on my list as far as how do we take this great document that you're bringing us for cars and feet and bikes, and then also bring it up to understand what is the character, what is the scale, how do we expect developers and development to come in. We know how access is going to be concerned. We don't quite know, I don't think, how buildings, how commercial kind of entities come in.
Fair.
I'm gonna keep moving us along if it's okay. I think staff has been doing an awesome job. The three of you are killing it. Kay, your notes are fantastic. Thank you for weeding out all of the wandery, unnecessary words that we are so good at creating for you. Jared and Ellie, thank you for helping organize us. I honestly, you might be doing too good of a job because it allows me to slack off every once in a while and just lean on your guidance. So, I don't know. I don't know if I have any critiques. Personally, what do anybody want to bash on Jared right now?
I do, but I'll wait.
I'd like to just say thank you. Coming in as a new person, like not being at the meeting last week and the notes were so incredible to be caught up to come today. So, and then, just all the information and the speed at which it comes, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, our goal is simply to give you guys the information to make informed decisions. And so, as long as we're doing that, we're doing something right. And I know sometimes the packets can get a little big. I think our intent is typically to say exhibits tend to live as the additional information that if you really want to get into the weeds, you can read it, but we try to distill that down in the staff report and pull out those salient points for you, or highlight that. And so outside of the applicant's information and the applicant's application packet, some of the other stuff, like with the inclusionary zoning report, a lot of that other stuff was more for your own reference in case you needed to look back to it. So we didn't expect, every meeting you were reading the community housing guidelines, all 27 or 32 pages of it or whatever it is. But, I felt it was worse to not give that to you, even if you guys just said, okay, it's there. I can gloss over that, or I can at least refer back to it if I need to answer this one question. So, yeah, if you think of anything, we're open. We just want to get you guys the information in the best way that you consume it. So happy to adapt and
Right on.
Um, and I don't mean to compare Jared, but I have not really seen any findings for, disapproval.
Okay.
Right? Janet, at least when I was on here, when she was leading this, there would be some occasionally in there, there'd be findings for approval and findings for disapproval. And it really helps you sort of look at the code in a little bit of a different light. So let's say you don't know the code very well,
Mhm.
right? Instead of being guided towards an approval, right? It allows a different conversation to happen. I think, yeah, we had Janet with those findings. We had Michael, who had very strong opinions. And I think it created a lot of really good open dialogue, and it helped us feel more confident in what we were voting towards.
That's easy.
Yeah.
I was like writing up denials, so.
Yeah, and I was gonna say something. Kay, thank you for the time and energy that you put into the notes. They're really fantastic. And I think as a new member going back, something that really helps is familiarizing ourselves with some of those notes from either previous P and Z meetings or previous Board of Trustee meetings. Because as we're new members to the P and Z Commission, it's gonna help, right, when we're out there dealing with the public. If we get questioned on a project that perhaps got approved when we weren't on the commission. So referencing those notes is really great. And I just wanted to mention, I know there's some local neighboring jurisdictions that are using a software to capture and streamline and kind of make better use of staff's time, where it'll capture those talking points, if that's something ever that the town wants to consider, as they have a few committees and a few note takers, I'm sure, but something to just consider if you guys want to do that in the future. But otherwise, yeah, thank you guys for the strong work.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, I can do it all. Thank you, Jared, for everything you do with the affordable housing and the community housing packets, because those were big and complicated, and when you broke things down into like 80% AMI would mean this and this and this. It was really, it was up above and beyond. It was nice. It was really nice to see that. Thanks.
How about you, Nick? You want to go off on Jared?
Out on Ellie.
No, not at all. Staff's doing a great job. I don't really have anything that would be constructive.
All right. When in kind of a closing for this section, how about you all talk to us for a second about what we could be doing, and any thoughts, lessons learned over your time here?
Yeah, I think, for me, I think you guys really hit a lot of them. I think it's being prepared for meetings. I'll always harp on, let Kay, myself, Ellie, somebody know as soon as you know whether you can attend a meeting or not attend a meeting. And if that changes, that always helps with quorums and being responsible to applicants. And then, Kim, I really appreciate you bringing it up. I think it's very important to remember that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to say, let's think about this and let's continue this application for 2 more weeks. Not every application needs to be to a yes vote that meeting. And I know this board has really strived to be very efficient, because every time an applicant comes back, it costs them time and money. And, I want to make sure that you guys know it's okay to move stuff forward, but it's also okay on the bigger projects to say, look, we want to sit and talk about this for a little bit longer. Maybe on some of these big projects, we say, we just want to spend the first meeting just learning about it. So all we want is a presentation from the applicant, tell us about it. We want to ask questions. We want to make sure we have the necessary documentation we need to make a decision. And we're going to continue it. We're not even going to discuss the application. We're going to hear from the public. And then 2 weeks later, we'll actually discuss the application. And sometimes that kind of time can get people to sit and think about it. I've seen it with the trustees, they made a decision. And then a few of them reached out to me about a month later and said, can we undo that decision that we made? We weren't really in love with that decision. We think we made it, it was a little emotional at the time or something like that. And so just keeping that in mind that is perfectly okay. It's also okay to say, hey, we disagree with the motion that staff has crafted. Here's some thoughts. We're going to continue it just so you staff can go back, prepare a better motion that aligns with what we, the P and Z, want. And then we can approve that at the next meeting. So that's another good use of the continuation. Also gives the applicant a little bit of surety that they know where the outcome is going to be. But we don't have to sit here and try to craft findings in the moment. Sometimes we can move those along to future meetings. So I think that's all I have. I don't know if you have anything else, or Ellie, you have anything you want to add?
I just thought of something that, as you were talking about that, Jared, with the applicants, I'm sorry to go back a step. It would be really, I think we realized the value. And so we had 2 applications over on East Main recently.
Mhm.
We had the Clay Center and we had the, what are we calling it? The food truck party zone.
Party zone.
In past versions of this commission, we've tried to be very thoughtful on the cost to applicants.
Mhm.
We know that architecture and planning services do not come cheap. Renderings, illustrations, that adds to the cost, and we didn't always get those in the past, and it really made our job harder to the point where with the food truck zone, we actually asked that applicant to go back and just do some quick graphics because we just couldn't get our heads around it. And I applauded us for that. Because it was hard. I mean, I think we all were like, this is interesting, but it's you're the gateway of our town. And we kind of needed a little bit more at that point. And then you have the Clay Center, which is like, they've blown it up, but they came with graphics that really allowed us to understand how it worked, why it worked, and some of the nuances that allowed us to understand, yes, it's a much bigger building, but it also has a lot of kind of Carbondale character built into it. So I don't know how we feel about that as a commission, adding on that cost to applications. But I think, I err toward not being afraid to ask applicants to do that. If they want to develop something in this town, take up a piece of land where less and less is becoming available. My 2 cents anyways, and feel free to disagree with that. I understand that there's the other sides to it, but I think it helps us make a decision to see that.
There are so many free like AI rendering services that you can engage in anymore. So I typically don't have a hesitation to asking for that. Having somebody redraw a whole site plan or something like that, that's where I get a little resistant to requesting that information or making those changes. But requesting a graphic it's so easy, so cheap.
I mean, most people are designing buildings in 3D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally all the software they're using has
Softwares, and
some
so it's-
rendering service attached to
You
it.
press
anyway.
the button.
Yeah.
Render.
It doesn't have to be
It has-
spectacular. I need to visualize it.
And certainly we can do a better job at making sure those are included in the packets. So you guys have that when you first review. That's a good feedback.
Sorry to jump. I didn't mean to. I
No.
know you guys were kind of, hopefully you guys were giving some guidance, and I jumped back. So
And those things like that are helpful. We can tell the applicant
Mhm.
on day one, by the way, you should factor this into your application because it will be expected. And then they'll know early on. So I think that's helpful.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we've had a few of those over the years where we had a different commission iteration that just felt bad about applying those costs, and I think it made our job a bit harder.
Mhm.
I think it makes it harder on the public.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a very valid statement. Mhm.
It's also really nice to ensure that they're sticking to the materials presented.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, we've been burned on that.
we have been burned on that. And when did you see what almost happened with Ryan? Or, you know, and that all went really, really well until that moment where we said, now we're gonna hold you to these graphics. And it was like, well, you know, if you're using a, you know, something that's just like a Swedish stone, you know, and you're not planning on importing it, then don't put it in the renderings. You know, those are the kind of things. And then just for backstory, the Thompson Park project is a specific one where we were shown one thing and it was the old switcheroo, and staff was so underwater at that time, they didn't get a chance to go out there and check until it was too late. And so that's the example. It's very, still my memory is very kind of poignant to that point.
That was a very good presentation by Jeff.
What's that?
That was Jeff who did that.
Mm.
Very good
And
presentation.
it's okay to require, especially on big projects like Thompson Park, to require material mock-ups on site.
Yeah.
And say, you know, we're not gonna approve the materials until we see a mock-up.
Yeah.
And then we'll approve that, and then that stays up until the project's done, and you can always reference right back to that, and that's a good trick. It's hard to do on a single family home, it's hard to do on small projects, but big projects, multi or mixed use developments, they kind of expect it.
It should be in their specs in the first place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that kind of wraps up, I think, this check-in. But I want to go around the room and see, is there any other comments, anything that we didn't get to? Anybody got something in their back pocket they want to put down? Nick, how you doing over there?
I'm good.
Right on. Thanks, man. Everybody good? Everybody else? Yeah? All right, with that, and you're all gonna have to really be patient with me as I learn proper procedure here. Can we just roll right into staff update now? We have to close anything?
Nope.
Okay.
As you guys see, upcoming meetings. Right now, I don't have anything scheduled for the 26th, so we might cancel that. The 10th is canceled for sure. So, could be a couple weeks off for you all. We'll probably be certain on the 26th, I would say, sometime middle of next week, but at this point, it's looking like it's more likely canceled than not.
Okay. As a heads up, I will not be able to be here on the 24th.
Of October?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to let you know. Giving that heads up early on.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
that's really all I think we have staff update wise. Yeah, it's kind of a slowish time. The map Carbondale is the only other kind of big project that we've updated you guys on.
Great.
And we'll know soon on the November. It's the first Monday in November.
I will be there. The first Monday in November, beginning at 6 o'clock. It will be at the Callaway Room at Third Street Center because the next day is elections and this room is not available.
Oh, yeah. I see the
Six-
psychology happening here. I
6
see what you're
p.m.
doing, planning department. Yep, loud and clear.
So yeah, you know, great opportunity just to learn more about it, share any last minute thoughts. I will say it tracks with our immense amount of public input. And that's what we've been trying to keep it to is what the public told us to improve on the roadways.
Awesome.
I went down that rabbit hole for quite a few hours.
On Map Carbondale?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
I feel like we've commissioner commented ourselves all up, but if anybody else has something they didn't get out, now is the moment. Adjournment. I don't need a motion.
No, you don't. You just call it adjourned.
Ha.
We've been calling motions for this the
We
entire time.
we have been. Jay is so damn nice.
That was Michael too who did that.
You
Well,
just bang the gavel at any point. You
and
say
somehow
meeting
I'm-
adjourned.
somehow I'm not as nice as Jay and I'm not as mean as Michael, so meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
We've been wasting so much time.
All those motions.